If you've ever thought about joining the military but wondered what it would be like to raise children during your service, or maybe you're in the military now and you're preparing to start a family. In this video, we'll be speaking with my friend Desiree, who's an active duty officer in the Air Force, and she's also married to another active duty officer in the Air Force. She grew up in a military family, so she understands what it's like to be a military brat, so to speak. And she's here to answer some of the most common questions about what it's like to grow up as a child in the military and also what it's like to be in a mil-to-mil relationship. All right, so Desiree, what was it like for you growing up with both parents in the military?
So both my parents were enlisted Air Force members. Was born in Georgia and then moved shortly after that. So spent actually the majority of my time living overseas. I'll say that was probably the best part of my parents being both military is we got to constantly move. As a kid, that might not always be the most exciting thing as being really young and then having to move. But as you get older, you realize that every 4 years you're ready to go to the next place and new experience. So growing up with the military parents and living abroad, I got to experience a ton of different countries, played a lot of sports. With those sports, you get to travel to other countries with your sports teams. So getting to experience France and Ireland and Germany with your friends is pretty amazing. And as an adult, you look back on those experiences and realize you got to go to all these cool places while some other people just stayed in their hometowns and that's all they really knew and had to pay a lot of money to travel to all these different places. You get to experience places like Tokyo Disney and just amazing things that you never would have gotten to experience probably had your parents not been military.
So what made you want to join the military considering your background growing up as a military brat?
Military is really all I've known. Obviously, like I said, my parents are both mil-to-mil, and so I loved that experience of traveling to different places, learning about different countries, learning about different cultures, and getting to experience all of that. I saw how much my parents appreciated their jobs and what they got to do for the airmen that worked under them, and I wanted to be able to do the same thing. Growing up, my parents were my role models, and so I got to see the positions they were able to hold and looking after people constantly. I really liked that care and feeding that they were able to provide and wanted to be able to do something that was along the same lines and getting to continue to keep traveling, and that's what I've been able to do so far in the military, so I hope to keep doing that.
For military families that get stationed abroad, how can they take advantage of that opportunity and make the best of that sort of situation?
So one of the things that my parents did really, really well is because my brother and I were very involved in sports, they would make it a family trip. So as a kid, you get on the bus with your teammates and you drive to other places. You get to drive to different countries to compete against other DOD schools. So my parents would pack up their stuff and they would just follow the buses out, and then we would just spend the weekend, in France or in another country being able to play sport. We took advantage of doing camps that were in Italy or in other countries, and my parents would just make the most of making sure that we got to experience these countries and the different places that we were going. And so I know that some families that I've met are kind of nervous to let their families and their kids explore on their own. Taking the train, that was one thing that my friends and I did all the time when we were living in Japan. Being able to get on the train and go to Yokosuka or go to Tokyo and being able to see those things. My parents definitely made sure that we were exposed to a lot of different environments, and I definitely think as an adult that that's helped me, even being able to interact with different people from different backgrounds because I grew up exposed to all of that.
So growing up with both parents in the military, what are some common challenges that military children often face, and how did you overcome them?
So one of the biggest ones is the moving piece. As a little kid, you do not want to tell your friends that you're having to move on to another location every 4 years. And it's difficult. I know that I was very upset with Air Force for making my parents take me away from California. However, you realize that you get to go to somewhere new. So make it exciting for your kids when you're having to have those discussions with them, and do the research ahead of time. If my parents could tell me, hey, we're going to go to this new place, look at all these different things you're going to be able to see and experience. And my dad, before we moved to Japan, taught me how to use chopsticks. So my parents would make a fun experience out of those kind of things. So yes, you don't understand the great things that are going to come out of being able to move around as a little kid when you're that little kid, because all you see is that your parents are moving you once again, but trying to make them excited about it because they're going to be able to see something different and something else that their friends probably are not going to see. My parents did a very good job of making sure that I had something to look forward to when we would be moving. The other challenge was, since both of my parents were in the military, there were times, birthdays and holidays, where I may only have one parent. I think now it's easier for people that are mil-to-mil because we have things like FaceTime. that wasn't a thing when I was growing up. So one of the things that my dad would do is he would create a calendar for me that I could color in, and I could count down the days that I knew that my dad was going to come home and I'd see him. Or I knew that he was always going to bring me back a stuffed animal. I think even when I was in high school, he'd leave and bring me back a stuffed animal. But it's those little things to remind your kids that you're going to come home. Now I would highly recommend being able to FaceTime with your kids when you can. I understand depending on the environment that you're in and deployed location or placed because of the time difference, it might be a little bit harder, but trying to make sure that you're scheduling those times to talk to your family. My dad would write us letters, or my mom would make sure she'd call on the weekend when she could to remind us that, you know, she's still coming home, it's going to be okay. But those were the biggest things, was traveling, and then just when one of them wouldn't be able to be home. But it's doable. And like I said, my parents are my role models, and they're why I'm here today.
So your husband's also active duty Air Force. What's that like?
So I would say at times it's challenging, but for the most part, I absolutely love it because he completely understands where I'm coming from. Prior to us meeting, I was dating a guy who was civilian, and he really didn't understand the traveling piece and the having to pick up and move, find a different job, and getting to experience something new. My husband and I were both military brats, so we both understand that piece and being able to support one another. So luckily, I also have a husband who has a lot of goals and wants to do well in the Air Force. And so I know that I can have his back and he can have my back. And so having somebody that's able to understand that perspective, they know what it's like to go TDY, so constantly go places for your job, and they know what it's like to deploy and what you're going through when you're on your deployments. So really, it's been awesome to have somebody else who understands everything that you're going through and not constantly having to explain all the time. Now, it comes with its challenges in the sense of you're not always going to be with your spouse. But from what we've experienced, it just makes us stronger because you constantly have to work on that communication piece, which is anybody who's in a relationship knows is really, really important. You have to be able to communicate when you're in a mil-to-mil relationship. It just means that we can travel together. If he's TDY, I'll go fly out to go see him, and vice versa. So it's a good experience.
As a Black female officer, why would you consider having diversity within the officer ranks important?
I know recognizing that there aren't a ton of people that look like us, and recognizing that you're there as an officer specifically to look after your airmen and advocate on behalf of your airmen. And as a Black female officer, I understand I bring a different perspective than what everybody else is going to have because of my background, whether it's because of the way I look or just my personal experiences. You bring something different to the table. You're able to add that perspective when you're speaking to different people in leadership positions who are making those decisions for the younger airmen, and just being able to either explain why people are doing certain things or just bring a different dynamic. You're able to bring a different perspective to higher leadership.
All right, so super big thank you to Desiree for being here and answering some of the most common questions that come up about what it's like being a child, raising a child in the military, and also what it's like having a mil-to-mil relationship. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. And also for you, thank you for tuning in and watching this episode with us. We do appreciate your time. We thank you for being here, and I'll see you.